Hello, I'm just cutting back this Miscanthus strictus grass, or the zebra grass, that grows along the jungle hut and leads over to the bridge. And this is really the best time to do it. We've had a winter, we've had all the animals overwintering in the grasses, and we've had the form and structure. But now, as we come into middle of spring, we need to cut it back to allow that new growth to come through without it being cut back itself. And you can already see we've got new shoots coming. So this is a job I really need to get cracking with, and I've got plenty more to be cutting back today, including the big Miscanthus giganteus, which is a bit of a tougher job to get back to ground level. And I think also I'm going to start pruning back some of my palm trees and maybe some of the bamboo and the hedges as well, to really sort of make it look nice and neat for spring and then into summer. Now, I said this grass is tougher than the Miscanthus strictus, and it is. It's got much thicker stems, and they're not woody, but they're very, very tough. So with the shears, it does take a bit more out of you. And here I've got to be careful, because I've got this beautiful Clematis almandii that's sprawling all over above the pond area. So it's right through the grass, through the bamboo, through the fascias around there, the polycarpa, and over the waterfall. It's really spread about. Very vigorous plant, great to see, and the flowers smell very nice at this time of year as well as actually the scent from these narcissi below. So also underneath we've got some big boulders which was framing this area between the jungle part of the garden and the pond. So I've got to be careful not to go too far down, but I want to go down far enough so that most of this upright old stems are cut back. So I'll go just above the Miscanthus and just get in there. It's quite fun to do. And these stems could be used for various things. We could use it for thatching, we could use it for shredding and composting, or laying on the ground, and you can use it for making some little nature boxes, because they're nice long tubes for animals to shelter in, little creatures. So while I continue with this, let me show you some other things down the garden that I've been up to recently. Now, I've been cutting back the bamboo down the path here, also these Trachycarpus princeps hybrid palms. The leaves have been overhanging the path, so I have a decent clear view down the path now, and I can actually walk down here and go around the corner, and that is where I'm going to take you next on this garden video, because down here I have actually made progress on the structure down there. There's not just holes in the ground, there's something in those holes. So let me take you down there and I'll show you what I've been up to. So here we are. I've actually got some posts in the ground, and these are the heavy big posts. They're 3.6 meters tall, got 4 of them, and these are the edges for the structure that we're going to build up here. Now, the end structure isn't going to be this tall with a roof on top. I will cut back these posts at an appropriate level. Once I've got my decking in, then I can see that I can walk underneath. I'll cut it off there about 2 meters, and then we'll do a shallow pitch roof over the top so it's not too high. And I've got some obstacles in this area because I've got the trees, I've got the bamboos, so the far posts, I'm going to have to cut back the bamboos a bit, and then I'm going to have to be mindful of how the roof goes over, because we've got that eucalyptus tree very close to one post. It took a long time to think about this area to make sure it fits and it wasn't a too big a structure in a small area. Yes, it's going to be quite big, but I could have gone bigger with a flatter roof, but then it would have been a bit overpowering in this area. I need it to fit into the area and not be absolutely the maximum size. And it means down the edges I've got some decent borders that I can fill up all the way around. So at the back, obviously got the bamboos, they'll do their thing. We've got the path and some herbaceous plants either side of it down here. By the back of the garden, before the fields, I've mounded up some soil where I dug out some of the holes so I can plant into that. And then the area closest to us here, once all this is finished, got a nice shady spot, and I can actually plant my ferns and drought-ish tolerant, shade tolerant plants, because it does get pretty dry in summer down here. I'll also be collecting water off the roof when I finish this, so that I can easily water the tree ferns that do need a lot of water. And talking about tree ferns, I've been lucky down here because I've moved some of the tree ferns to allow this path to come through last year, and some have kept in situ and they've kept green over winter, so I'm really happy with that. A lot of people's fronds will have frazzled and gone brown by now, but here most of the fronds are looking really healthy, and they're starting to look like the new knuckles are starting to push through into growth, which is a little early, but I'm sure they'll be fine. So this structure, lots to do. It looks like I've done a lot with these posts, but the posts are just in. They are not cemented in apart from that one there. So these are just propped up. So it is a bit dangerous me standing here at the moment if the wind picks up. So I do need to concrete these in, and it takes a lot of concrete. These are big holes. I think the one I did last night, there's about 10 bags of ballast and a bag and a half of cement. So that took a lot of work mixing up in a wheelbarrow. So I've got plenty more to do in this area. So I'm going to be doing that over the next few weeks, and then actually building the structure, which I'm very excited to share with you. Right, no heavy landscaping today down here. I think what I'll do is actually get some of these ferns and do my first planting of 2026. So this is the spot where I'm going to put some ferns, and these on the whole are dryopteris types, which means that they can cope with drying out a bit. And some of these, to be honest, some of these pots are pretty dry because it's been dry recently and I've not watered them at all. You can see I've already got a few ferns in the ground, but mostly these are in pots. Look at this one. This is Dryopteris aetherosa brilliance, and this is a beautiful, beautiful fern. These have all remained evergreen over winter because it's been pretty mild, so I don't need to cut back this foliage because it's still looking really good. Normally you would cut back all the foliage to allow the new croziers to come out and new leaves to come out, but I think these are still looking good, so I won't do that. And the soil here, if you remember, is all the topsoil from when I dug up the areas for the path that we did last year, and I've mixed in some compost as well, and we've got that topsoil added that I got from Wicks last year. So it's pretty loamy, it's pretty free draining, but it's holding on to a lot of moisture at this time of year, which is good. We're underneath the eucalyptus, we've got the Dicksonia antarcticas around us as well, so this will dry out in summer quite a lot, so I can't put plants that need lots of moisture all year round because they will suffer. But I think most of these Dryopteris ferns should be fine in this location. It'll get some dappled sunlight at certain parts of the day and year, but mostly it'll be pretty shady in this spot. The area I need to clear of a few weeds. We've got the laurel seedlings popping up from the laurel tree above, which provides that shelter for the Dicksonias to keep them evergreen over winter. And we've also got some Trachycarpus popping up, which I'll just pick up, snip off, and every time I see them I'll just cut them down because I don't want them popping up in this area, but it's pretty hard to avoid it because we've got the tetrapanax around us. So in terms of planting, I don't like to think too much about it, because I think the more you think about it, the more linear it looks and the less natural it looks. So literally I'll just get my plants, dot them about, make sure I like the look, but I won't think too much about it, and then I'll just plant them, and we'll see how it turns out once I've got them in the ground. And then I'll give them a really, really good water. You can see this one here, this Dryopteris. I will actually cut back this one because it's dried out quite a lot. This is a Dryopteris Felix Mas linearis polydactyla. So this one, very finely cut leaves. I think I will cut back this one, give it a good water, give it a best chance of perking up, and we'll have a nice carpet of green in this shady spot. Now, I said I had some palm trees to prune, and this is one of them, and I've actually started to prune it already. This is a Trachycarpus fortunei. It's a plant that I grew in my old garden, actually spear pulled, nearly didn't make it after the winter of 2010 when it was a very small plant, but it survived. It came to this garden, planted out, and as you can see, it's much taller than me now. We've noticed on recent months we've got the yellowing of the oldest leaves because they're aged. These are several years old, and I've cut off the worst ones. But on the far side around here, we've had a growth that's still down at about 50 centimetres above ground. So they're very old leaves, about 8, 9, 10 years old, all the way up to the top. And these back leaves now are pushing against the fence. They're starting to yellow and get tatty. So I'm going to remove these all the way up to my head height here. We've also got these old flower heads that have died and shriveled, but they still persist on the plant, and you can cut these off as well. I've just got some secateurs at the moment, so this will help me get through the leaves, but I'll probably have to get a fine-tooth saw just to get all these off right to the trunk, because that came off pretty easy. But when you get to these actual old petioles or leaf stems, that is quite tricky to get through. So a saw is probably easier to get a cleaner cut. Anyway, I'll carry on going around here and cutting these off. And it does mean there'll be more garden waste that I need to either compost, shred, or put in the garden bin to be collected. This is one of many palm trees in the garden. There's probably, 50 to 100 palm trees of various different sizes in the garden. Some like this need a bit of a tidy up. Some others I'm letting keep all the leaves on because they're still looking good, including a true princeps by the pond, which is looking absolutely stunning, and I'll show you that now. One of the most sought after palm trees that you can grow in your garden because it has these beautiful bluish silverish underside on the petioles and underneath the leaves, although this one has faded a little bit. But look at the foliage, every single leaf right down to ground level is still nice and green. There's no need to get the secateurs or saws out to prune these leaves because they're still looking stunning all the way to the top. And if we look in the centre, there's that silvery bluish colour to the spears and emerging leaves. Absolutely gorgeous palm. It's one that I wouldn't be without in the garden, and luckily I've got quite a few of various sizes. Put it on some real height now, even though it's a very difficult palm when it's very small. Once it's established in the ground, it'll slowly but surely put on some height. To give you an idea, this plant here is about 15 years old now, and it's only got about 50-60 centimetres of trunk, so not very large yet. But as it gets bigger, growth should speed up and it should start putting on more and more height. But if you want a palm tree that looks similar to this but grows much faster, I recommend getting a Trachycarpus princeps hybrid, as it has far more vigour and it grows much quicker, and it still has the elegance and the silvery underside of the newest leaves. Now here's a palm tree I have been pruning, not really for the health of the palm tree, but for access down this path. This is my Butia odorata, often referred to as Butia capitata in the trade. And this is one that I've grown from a very small plant, planted out here, and it's grown into this huge specimen over the years, and it gets really, really wide. Yes, it's put on some height, but not lots of height. It's really trying to spread out. So this path is really too close to it. And if you remember, the wooden path before used to be right up by the trunk. So I have come out further, but it's still pretty close, and it means I have to hold back the leaves and cut off any that come this way. But it means you can't miss this palm tree. As soon as you walk down the path, it stops in your tracks and you can see the full grace of this beautiful feather palm. So yes, I use a saw to cut horizontally down there to make sure that the growth point in the center is not touched, but when we cut horizontally round the side, it gives a really nice pineapple-like finish to the trunk, and then as the plant expands, those leaf bases split open and then eventually fall off. And this is a fantastic palm to grow. If you can only buy 2 feather palms, I would pick a giganteus because that's the hardiest, but if they're hard to come by, go for Butia odorata because it's much quicker growing. It's still got some hardiness. -5 is fine, -8 is about its limit when we start getting damage. So it's not super hardy, but for many of us it's well worth trying, and it grows into this exquisite palm tree. So I hope you've enjoyed this look around the garden on this quite mild spring day. Done lots of clearing, bit of planting, and looking ahead to the future with the structure down the garden. So thank you for watching this edition of Exotic Gardening UK. Join me next week where we're doing more in the garden.